So I've tried to put these questions into categories because questions such as, what is the sexiest Pokemon? But also stuff such as, thoughts on the incel epidemic that has 3 subreddits tied to it. Why exactly are you so cute? I'm trans. What's your favourite food? Spaghetti. I like dark chocolate as well. What's your favourite album and why is it No Love Deep Web by Death Grips? I haven't listened to that album. I will listen to it. An album that has been with me my whole life, ever since I discovered it when I was like 11, is A Weekend in the City by Block Party. Upbeat and at the same time emotionally devastating. The lyrics are beautiful. It's good. It's good. How has your day been? I walked my dog. It's not been very eventful, but it's not been negative, so... What is the sexiest Pokemon? I guess we're gonna have to do this. I'm gonna try and get in the headspace where I'm a Pokemon, and I want to date another Pokemon, so I'm looking for a sexy Pokemon. Is that how you say Pokemon? Every time I say it, it sounds more and more wrong. If I was a Pokemon, which one would I date? I think I found him. I found the one. This Pokemon. I would date Ditto. Is there a pet you don't have that you would like to have someday? I would really love to have a rescue greyhound. I think they are so cute. They are just these big couch potatoes and they're lanky and they've got these weird long horse dog faces. Favorite trash TV show? Everyone's got one. Oh, I have one. I have more than one. I have watched so much trash TV in my lifetime because depression. But my one favorite trash TV show is Kitchen Nightmares with Gordon Ramsay. I love that show so much. I wouldn't say it cured my depression, but it helped. When I was at the lowest point of my life, kind of like some kind of worm, I couldn't communicate, I was on the brink of emotional death. And that show was the only thing that brought me any kind of semblance of something that could be an emotion or joy. I've watched every single season probably more than once. So yeah, that happened. What's your age? I'm 24 years old. What social media are you most on? Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. Definitely do the tweets. Oh, and Discord? I don't know if Discord's social media. What's your favourite flavour of Oreo? Thins and double stuffed don't count as a flavour. Peanut butter. Have you watched BoJack Horseman? And if so, what do you think about it? I have depression. I've watched it. I really like the animation. I haven't seen the most recent seasons. I'm not really sure where they've gone with that. But at one point in my life, I was really into BoJack Horseman because, well, I was depressed. And so obviously, as you can imagine, I did relate to BoJack's depression. Problems with addiction, that's a subject for another video. It was very nice to see a comedy show talk about mental health in such a realistic way, with characters that aren't really very nice people. I tend to like TV shows that have characters that are very flawed and that are realistic. Are you taller than Ben Shapiro? How tall is Ben Shapiro? Hang on, I'm gonna Google it. Shapiro height. He's only 3 centimeters taller than me. I'm catching you up, Ben. Pineapple on pizza, yay or nay? I mean, sure, if you like pineapple on pizza, I'm not gonna stop you from eating pineapple on pizza. I don't do it. I'm not really into pineapple too much. Pineapples are kind of big and spiky and you have to cut them up and I'm just not, I can't be bothered. And I don't eat it on pizza because it's a bit sweet. But if you like it, then sure, do it, do you. What are your favourite books and films? I like this book. Good book. I like this book. I also really like this book because it's also good. It's a good book. There's another book that I really like that I don't have because it's a bit expensive and it's called The Art of Looking Sideways. It's a big book that has loads of little facts and interesting graphic design, and I'm really into this arty kind of book. Another good book is Whipping Girl by Julia Serrano. It really helped me when I started questioning all the gender stuff. I really like documentaries, and one of my favourite documentaries is The Century of the Self by Adam Curtis. It's a 5-hour documentary about the psychology of consumer culture and Yeah, I'm a bit intense. Tea or coffee? I like both at different times in the day. I like a coffee in the morning, and then I will basically drink a lot of tea during the day. If you could live anywhere, where would you live? Probably Canada. I don't know why. Maybe it's just this romanticized version of it that I have in my head. Favorite quote, if any. Originality is non-existent. Authenticity is invaluable. If you could tell an advice to 5 years ago you and another for 5 years into the future you, what would they be? 5 years ago me, an advice: stop smoking cigarettes just because you live in France. Don't listen to the French people, they're wrong. And for 5 years into the future, I would say, always remember where you came from. What's your favorite kind of cheese? I don't eat a lot of cheese. When I did eat cheese, I liked Gouda. Not really into French cheese at all. I'm not a good French. I'm not a good French. Nope. What temperature do you keep your AC on? I don't keep it on because it's expensive. What do you most fear in life? Probably being alone, but also people. So that's tense. Are you single? Skincare routine in caps. I understand your enthusiasm and I absolutely respect it. One of the really cool things... I wash my face with this by La Roche-Posay, which is a French brand of skincare, which is very good, that has no perfume in it, because I'm allergic to almost everything. Links for these in the description if you really want to know my skincare routine. For general moisturization, I use this big bad boy. It lasts me for months, and it's not really that expensive, considering how much you get in it. This is the secret. It's so good. Do you speak any other languages besides English? Yes, I do. I speak French fluently. La France et tout ça, baguette. Why are you so awesome? That's a big question. Kind of having this strange internal breakdown about the fact that you think I'm awesome, and is this really who I am? Am I really awesome? Am I tricking people into thinking I'm awesome? Imposter syndrome? No. Vivre en France, c'est vraiment quelque chose quand on est trans, parce que, franchement, personne sait qu'on existe, quoi. C'est quand même assez étonnant. Dogs or cats or both or neither? Both. Dogs, cats, animals, they're all great. Why do we have to make a decision? They're all really cute and they're all great in their own special, furry, cat, dog way. If the world would end tomorrow, how would you spend the rest of your day? I guess I'd want to hang out with some people that I find important in my life. End of world party where we all get completely fucked up because it's the end of the world anyway, so there's no point in trying to be like healthy and stuff. Or maybe I'd just go for a walk with my dog. What's a piece of advice you'd give your younger self if you could? Caring about what other people think of you isn't really that bad of a thing, because it means that you try your best to be a good person. However, people aren't just good or bad. Favorite band / musician. I'm not really good at this favorite thing, but I really like Milo, the rapper, especially the song Folk Metaphysics. I really like that song. I had a big Lord phase. Yeah. Massive Attack also. What's my favorite bridge? I'm just gonna look up the most famous bridges, and I'll tell you which bridge I like the best. Look at all these bridges. Oh, I found the bridge. I found my favorite bridge. This is a very cool bridge. Very intense, just like me. Do you watch anime? I have watched anime. I'm not a connoisseur of anime. I don't know that much about anime, but I'm not closed off to anime. I've watched a bit of it. I liked Attack on Titan. I like the movie Paprika as well. Is God dead? Is a hot dog a sandwich? No. I mean, a sandwich is 2 pieces of bread kind of in a stacking fashion. What are my favourite films? I think I already said that I liked that documentary. I'm trying to think of a film that isn't a documentary that I really like, and all I can think of is Shrek 2. Are you a fan of 100 gecs? 'Cause you should be. I am not, and I will look into it because I don't know who they are. I know I kind of look like this arty hype person, kind of, I guess, but I'm not Really, I don't know much about what's going on. I'm a bit lost. Perhaps I am a stranger to you, but will you marry me? No. If there was one skill you could impart onto everyone on the planet simultaneously, what would that be and why? I think I would give us the skill of communication. Everyone speaks every language, and so we can all communicate. I think that would help a lot. I think social change would come a lot faster if we could just talk to each other a bit easier. Favorite horror movie? I really liked Cam. I think it's like a psychological thriller. Really, really good, and it's on Netflix, and it's about a cam girl. Oh yeah, Get Out. Get Out is hands down one of the best movies I've ever seen, actually. What's your favourite Pokemon? Ditto. What's it like being such a good bean? It's pretty good. What's your favourite thing that you wouldn't recommend to people? Well, it's going to be another documentary because I'm me. Do not watch this. Don't do it. Don't watch Dear Zachary, a letter to a son about his father. Don't watch that documentary. It's amazing and it should not be watched. If you do, good luck. How does this relate to optics? I realise this was kind of a joke, but I think it's a very interesting question. It relates to optics in the sense that YouTubers making AMA videos make the YouTubers a lot more relatable. It gives you information about their personal life, which then reinforces the parasocial relationships that they are trying to construct with you in order to further their channel, I guess. I really need a haircut. I do realise that I look like a member of the Beatles, but please deal with it. Which reactionary YouTuber do you think believes what they themselves are saying the most? That is a very good question. I think that Blair White really does believe what she says. Will your content remain solely focused on transgenderism? Or are you planning on testing other waters? I am definitely planning on testing other waters, although transgenderism is a big part of my life. Transgenderism isn't. It's not a thing. Transgenderism is a bit weird. Kind of makes it sound like an ideology, and that is not what being transgender is. And it's also tightly linked to how the right wing tries to frame transgender people as some kind of cult. Who are some creators that you're influenced by? I'd say that a few years ago I was very influenced by ContraPoints, whereas now I am influenced by a lot more people. And I'd say quite a few smaller channels. I really like Boyform's channel, you should definitely check him out. Sarah Zadig is also amazing. Big Joel, very good. Cat Black, I am inspired by her one-take videos. How does she do that? I am in awe of people who manage to put out 1-hour videos every week where there are no cuts. Incredible. You gotta respect that. What is it like having a sudden surge in viewership and subscriptions? It's nice, it's cool, it's weird, it's strange to know that people care about what I'm saying and that people watch me in their free time. Interesting feeling, a bit strange, but I'm very grateful. I'm less stressed out about subscriber numbers ever since I got past about 3,000 subscribers. When you're under 3,000 subscribers, it is very stressful. You don't know if there's any point to what you're doing or not. You don't know if you're putting in hours and hours into script writing and shooting videos for nothing. That was difficult, but my advice would be, even if only 30 people are watching your videos, that is still 30 people, and a room full of 30 people, that's quite a big room. How much of that surge has gone through to Patreon, Twitter, and Discord? I did quite... I did get... Jesus. I got quite a few new patrons, which is incredible because I am slowly climbing towards the official French poverty line. I am slowly approaching being someone who is kind of financially stable for the first time in my life, which is kind of incredible, so thank you a lot. Twitter, I think most of the people who follow me on Twitter follow me because of my tweets and not because of YouTube. And Discord, well, my Discord is linked to my Patreon, so the Discord is incredible. We have a very interesting community. What sort of trends have you noticed in comments? Positive, negative? Does it seem like you're getting more attention from non-binary people, or is it more generalized? I would say that it's more generalized. I get quite a lot of comments from cis people who are like, thank you for opening my perspective. I also get quite a few comments from people saying, shut up, especially on my Calvin Gara video. Quite a lot of people do not like that video. That's fine, I was expecting that. It's fine. I know what I was getting myself into. Not a question, but I'd really love for you to do poem or story reading videos. I might. Currently that's reserved for my Patreon. I do have a Patreon tier where I read poetry and stories and stuff like that. What's the most aggravating thing to you as a content creator? This question's intentionally vague, so it covers everything from pre-production, production, post-production, and reception. I think the most aggravating thing for me as a content creator is probably filming the video. I'm fine with editing. I absolutely love editing. I can sit in front of my laptop editing for hours without even realizing that I need to take a break or eat or drink water. Filming the actual video is very difficult for me. I think it might have something to do with the fact that I'm transgender and I have to find an angle that doesn't give me dysphoria. I have to put the lights up. I have to wait for a moment where I feel like talking to a camera. It's difficult, especially with my mental health, which is kind of all over the place. And talking into a camera is just not something that is very easy when you start out, although I do feel like I'm getting better at it. Any lessons you've learned as you became a YouTuber? Yes, content creators are not some kind of untouchable entity. They are real people and they have very bad takes sometimes. I do want this channel to remain a little bit meta. I want to do quite a few videos about the psychology of video creating, the psychology of parasocial relationships, and really delve into the structures of what's happening. Another lesson I've learnt that you can delete comments if you think that they aren't productive. If someone just comes in my comments to misgender someone or generally just be a dick, then yeah, I'll delete the comment. How did you come up with the name korviday, if that's a shareable story? Is korviday what you want people to call you? I came up with the name korviday because I love magpies. I kind of relate to magpies. I just love them. Everyone sees them as pests, but I think they're kind of beautiful. And yeah, you can call me korviday. I was thinking about making this channel in my chosen name. Unfortunately, my chosen name has also been chosen by someone else on YouTube who I do not want to be associated with for now. So what pushed you to make videos, and what do you think about non-binary creators not getting the same amount of support as binary creators? I started making videos because I had a very difficult summer where I lost quite a few people. Felt like I wanted to start using my voice to speak up about harmful things inside and outside of the trans community, because if not now, then when? I think non-binary creators don't get the same amount of support as binary creators because they are less relatable to the general public. What do you think about Patricia Taxon, her music and her takes? Her music's really cool. Her takes, I don't know, I'm not friends with her, so I can't really tell you, I don't know her, but I think that her music and her content is generally pretty cool. Do you have an upload schedule? No, I don't. Although I do plan on releasing at least one video a month. It can be more than that. For the past few months, I've actually been releasing about a video a week. However, that will depend on my mental health. Sometimes I am extremely productive and I can put out 1 or even 2 videos in a week, and sometimes it will take me 3 weeks to put out a video. I don't really want to have a strict upload schedule for that reason. My energy levels aren't stable, and therefore sometimes there'll be a lot of videos and then sometimes you'll have to wait a few weeks to get a video. Who would you like to collaborate with in the future? I don't know, really. Probably someone that I'm already on friendly terms with. I don't really feel like I want to collaborate with people that I haven't had at least a few conversations with. Make a Discord server. Is that a question? I do have a Discord server. It's on my Patreon. How do you want your work to affect the world? I hope that somewhere out there, someone will be inspired to make something seeing me make things. I also do hope to change a few cis minds while I'm at it and show people that trans people are just regular people with different experiences. How are you finding YouTube as a new, smaller creator? Yeah, it's pretty chill. I like it. I quite like being a small creator. I can communicate with people who watch my videos. I can reply to comments. I think that's really cool. What's up with task failed? That is very observant. Task failed is an inside joke with myself about mistakes and failure in the creative process. I think a lot of people see mistakes as a very negative thing, whereas I always find mistakes to be the best part of the creative process. Every time I fail at doing something that I wanted to do, I decide to take my mistake and I use it to create something else. It's really fun. Any advice for coming out as non-binary to people who don't know what non-binary is? I personally just don't do it. I don't have the energy to explain what non-binary is to someone who doesn't even know that non-binary people exist in real life. I'm not really sure what advice to give you there, but just stay safe. A lot of people can react to people coming out as non-binary in a very negative way and use it as a way to ask you to justify your existence, and nobody should have to do that. But maybe send them some articles, send them some videos, and see how they react to that. And then after that, maybe, depending on their reaction, you could come out to them as non-binary. Can you talk a bit about trans doubt? Yes. I still have moments where I'm like, am I really trans? Or have I been tricked by the trans cult? I think trans doubt has a lot to do with the theory of double conscience. So when you live through systemic oppression daily, inside your brain there are two people. There is you, and there is also the person who tells you what society thinks of you. You really have to try and separate those two entities in your brain. Not every thought that you think is you. Your thoughts are not you. That is something that I learnt in therapy, and it has changed my life. Just because inside your brain you have this little voice saying, you're not trans, you're not good enough, you suck. This isn't true. This is an external voice that you have internalized. Recognizing that is the first step to countering it. It's okay to doubt, but it's also okay to not identify with your thoughts. I get it's a bit weird, but it's definitely helped me. Self-doubt and self-hate are only things that are planted from the outside in. No child is born with self-hate, self-doubt, and all these things. This is something that comes from society. These are things that happen outside of you, but they work their way inside your head. How did you first come to terms with the fact that you were trans? And what was that process like? I first came to terms with the fact that I was transgender when my sister told me about her best friend who is a trans guy. I started asking questions. I was saying, hang on, he takes hormones, so what does that do? And then I started looking up stuff online, and then I ended up on YouTube. YouTube was central to my self-discovery as a trans person, and that's partly also why I'm on YouTube now. When you're questioning your gender, YouTube is one of the first places that people go because they need that visual element. They want to see what will happen. They need representation. A lot of self-doubt, a lot of turning it over again and again in my head. The fact that this society is transphobic makes coming to terms with the fact that you're transgender really difficult, because letting go of the idea and the dream of navigating society in an easier way for the rest of your life, your healthcare, your relationships, all of your social interactions will depend on whether the person who is in front of you is transphobic or not. Was it worth it? Yes. Was it difficult? Yes. Another thing that helped me in my trans journey was coming to terms with the fact that not everyone's trans experience is the same. It does not matter if your gender feelings aren't exactly the same as that trans YouTuber that you watch, because every single trans person has a different past, a different personality, a different body, and all of these things combine into making completely individual experiences. What's a common misconception that you get from the trans feminine side of the community, and would you have any tips for us on how to be a better ally? One thing that is quite frustrating for me is that a lot of trans feminine people think that I also want to completely dissociate myself from my past pre-transition identity, and I don't. As someone who was a feminist pre-transition and who has experienced life perceived as a woman, it is a core part of my identity and I can't let go of that. I think it would be good to recognize that a lot of trans masculine people have lived misogyny directly. It can be very traumatizing. This is something that trans women can relate to. I realize that a lot of trans men can also be misogynists, but just because I'm trans masculine doesn't mean that I've always had masculine privilege, or even that I really benefit from it a lot now. My past trauma with being perceived as a woman and everything that came with that, I can't delete that. Another thing that has happened before is that I have felt like people treat trans masculine people as these cute little boys. I'm fine with being cute, but also I'm a 24-year-old person who has been through a lot. How do you cope with negative feelings and emotions that come from oppression? I make stuff. I make music, I paint, I make videos, I write poetry, I draw, I make stuff. I make so much stuff. It helps so much with anger, with fear, with all of the negative emotions. So I'll probably be making videos about my creative process in the future, and I do have a video planned about anger as a creative force. Also, I have a psychologist. I realize that not everyone has access to mental health care, but if you do and it's possible for you, definitely look into it. It helps a lot. If not, talk to trans people. Try and have trans friends. Try and have friends that have similar experiences to you and try and talk to them about what you're experiencing. Talking to cis people about transphobia is superficial at best and can sometimes be really harmful if they don't react in a positive way. A cis person in my friend group thinks that they have the right to decide who really is and isn't trans, and is very open about being a trans medicalist, invalidates and mocks trans people if they can't perfectly pass, and tells people of any other gender that they aren't valid. When I confronted her for being transphobic, she told me that she wasn't, just because trans people like Calvin Gara do the same thing. How do I deal with that? How do you deal with everyday transphobia or hate from people you have to be around? I don't really talk to many cis people in my day-to-day life. I don't really have many close friends that are cisgender. I realise that this is sad, but it's just honestly the only way that I've managed to protect myself from this kind of bullshit. I just can't deal with it. I don't have the energy. If your friend is open to learning, you could send her videos. You could try and explain that trans people can be transphobic. However, if she's not open to listening to your perspective, then embarrassing situations that happen to you because you're trans. A lot of social interactions can be very embarrassing when you're transgender. I personally try and reverse the roles when this happens to me, especially in social interactions and in public. So basically, if something weird happens, I always just think, society should be embarrassed. I should not be embarrassed just for being trans. A good example of this is that I went to go and get a coffee in this little bistro place, and the guy that came up to serve me said, "Hello, miss, what would you like?" I didn't have the energy to correct him, so I just said, "Oh, I'd like a cappuccino." So he leaves, and the person who brings me the cappuccino is his co-worker. She hands me the cappuccino, and she says, "Here's your drink, sir." The guy looks over at her, and then they look at me. They were clearly expecting me to tell them what my gender was, and instead of telling them, they realized that they fucked up. And I didn't give them an answer. They really wanted the answer. I didn't give it to them. I don't have time for that shit. So they probably felt quite embarrassed and awkward, and I walked out feeling pretty powerful. Do you think hormones can have an impact in any sense in someone's sexuality? I have seen so many people saying that it made them kind of consider the opposite sex and stuff. I do think that hormones can have an impact on people's sexuality. Testosterone, for example, really does change your sex drive, and I think it can change the way that you view sex and how you experience it. For some people it won't, and for some people it will. I personally feel more comfortable being attracted to all genders ever since I started taking hormones. I have a trans friend who used to identify as a lesbian, and now with testosterone he's become kind of just a really gay guy. I don't know, it's a strange thing, isn't it? Attraction? Who knows what's going on? Do you have a vocal coach? I'm NB trans mask and considering low dose T, but I'm worried about messing up my singing voice. I don't have a voice coach. I have been coaching myself with singing for quite a long time now, using online tutorials and resources. I've only just started getting back control of my voice, and I've been on testosterone for over 2 years now. It is a difficult process. It was very difficult for me to lose quite a lot of my range in the high notes. However, I have gained a lot of range in the low notes, and there is something very special about hearing your voice change and relating to it more and more. So even though my voice is technically not as good now, I do identify with it more, and I think that's really important. Psychologically, it is quite difficult to get over the fact that your voice will change, because singing was a very big part of my identity before transition, and it still is now. If you do decide to go on T, there will be times when singing is painful and you just can't do it. When that happens, I would recommend not singing. You can take breaks, it's fine. Sometimes it's better to let all this stuff settle down before trying to work on it. Do you believe that to be transgender you need to have dysphoria? Oh god. Dysphoria, the word, is being used to gatekeep. And gatekeeping is dangerous. I realise a lot of people in America don't realise how dangerous gatekeeping is. In America, there is a system called informed consent, which means that you can just rock up to Planned Parenthood and you can say, I know what hormones do, I'm aware of the effects, give me hormones. In other countries, it's not like that. In France, if you want hormones, not only do you have to have a letter from a psychologist, a letter from a psychiatrist, you also have to prove that you are really trans, which means saying that you are straight, that you are binary, that you experience dysphoria in a very, very classical trans narrative way. I had to say that I played with trucks and played football when I was a kid. This is bullshit, but that's what gatekeeping does. That's what the end goal of gatekeeping is. People don't realise this. Gatekeeping isn't just, you need dysphoria to be trans. When gatekeeping is pushed to the extreme, it basically means that you have to be straight, you have to pass, you have to get bottom surgery, you must be all these things. This is dangerous. No. Gatekeeping is bad. Don't do it. What do you think would be needed for good non-binary representatives in media due to the climate of conversation about us? I think it would be good to have non-binary characters in TV shows that aren't robots. That would be a good start. Do you know any non-binary femmes? If so, how have they impacted your life? Yes, I did know a non-binary trans feminine person who was absolutely incredible. She was a really good friend of mine, and she's part of the reason that I started this YouTube channel. Do you ever feel like people invalidate you because you're a trans NB guy? Not really, because I don't tell a lot of people that I'm a non-binary trans guy. I generally just say that I'm a trans guy. This is partly because where I live, there is quite a lot of NB phobia in the trans community. I can't deal with it. I do think that I have some kind of advantage in the sense that because I am physically transitioning, people take my trans identity more seriously than they would a non-binary person who isn't transitioning physically. That's a shame. How can we effectively protect trans kids? I'm seeing more and more right-wing propaganda about how children are being indoctrinated into transitioning, and I'm not sure how to combat that. I think facts and research are on our side when it comes to this. However, a lot of people who are fear-mongering about trans kids are not acting on facts. They are acting on feelings. I really wish that we were talking about intersex children and how much they suffer at the hands of this binary society. I feel like nobody talks about intersex children, and it's such a shame that we are instead focusing all of the attention on trans kids who don't even physically transition. Pre-teen kids don't physically transition. All they do is wear different clothes, use different pronouns and different names. It's such a complicated topic. I'll probably make a video about it. Do you have a rich love life? And if so, how has being NB and trans factored into the experience? I would say yes, I have had quite a rich love life. How has being NB and trans factored into the experience? I only date trans people. That is how it's factored into the experience. I don't date cis people. It's not a rule, but it's definitely a preference. How did you come to the conclusion that you're a non-binary guy? I identify the same way, and I'd love to hear what your journey to claiming that identity was. I used to identify as a binary guy. However, in the current state of society and masculinity, I cannot relate to being a man. I'm fine with the word guy. Man? In the current state of things, no. If we existed in a society where masculinity wasn't such a strange clusterfuck of narrow identities, maybe I would identify as a binary guy. However, I just can't. I don't relate. I feel much more at home with the non-binary guy identity, and it also helps me a lot with my dysphoria. How can cis folks be good allies to non-binary people without being obnoxious? Do you think that cis folks are able to understand and empathize with non-binary people in a meaningful enough way to advocate for them in unfriendly spaces? Yes, absolutely. I do think that you can advocate for non-binary people. I think the best way for cis people to do this is to teach other cis people that neutral pronouns are real and good. Correct people when they use the wrong pronouns. If you hear a cis person being NB-phobic, talk to them about it and try and explain to them that non-binary people do exist. If a non-binary person is present, definitely do ask them before going into a debate about non-binary identities. They might not have the energy that day to deal with a cis person being shitty. Thoughts on non-dysphoric trans people taking HRT under an informed consent model? People who don't use the word dysphoria to describe their trans experience, if they want to take hormones, they should be allowed to take hormones. I really don't think that it's a big deal. As long as they know what the effects are and the effects are things that they want to happen to their body, who are you and who am I to judge them? What are your thoughts on neopronouns? Are there any that you've thought of using or that you do use? My thoughts on neopronouns are interesting because I live in France. We don't have neutral pronouns in France. So in the trans community, we have had to develop neopronouns as a way for existing as non-binary people, which is really, really interesting and cool. I personally don't use neopronouns. I just use he, him in France. In English-speaking spaces, I don't use them either, partly because I just don't feel like explaining them to people. I don't have the energy to explain this shit to cis people. I really don't. How do non-binary people label themselves in terms of sexuality in your experience? However they feel like labeling themselves. It's up to them. Left or right leaning? Left. Forever. I have always been a leftist and I will always be a leftist. I don't jump ship. I've always been on the same ship and I will never change. What's your political ideology? I know you're some kind of leftist. Oh really? But are you part of any specific tendency? Do lean towards anarchism and anarcho-syndicalism, I guess, but my politics are also very intersectional. I'm not one of those people who reduces everything to class, although sometimes I have to mention class to get people to actually give a shit about what I'm talking about. Kropotkin or Marx? Oh god. I'm not one of those people who fights about which old dead white guy was a better old dead white guy. Both of them had some pretty interesting things to say, and I'm also sure both of them were probably also quite shitty. Thoughts on the incel epidemic that has 3 subreddits tied to it and how it's affecting young people. I'm so obsessed with incels, I really am. I want to make a video about this, so I'm not going to go too into detail about what I think, but I will tell you that I think incels and gender are a big subject. Masculinity, the narrow definition of masculinity, and the gender binary, I think all of these things are very much linked. Do I support third wave feminism? Yes. Thoughts on centrism? It's a result of the world we live in. It's easier to be a centrist than to have any kind of radical opinion about the world, because the world teaches us to not have opinions about the world. 2 sides to every discussion. Libertarian or authoritarian? A libertarian, I think. Yeah, if I'm an anarchist, definitely. Are you religious? No, but I'd say I'm quite spiritual in my own way. Thoughts on abortion? Oh my god. I am for abortion. I used to basically be a woman. I mean, it turns out I'm not, but I thought I was, and everyone treated me like one. Do you have a general worldview that you try and weave into your videos? Intersectional understanding? Favorite political thinkers or philosophers? Chomsky. What was your path to leftism? Was being trans an important part of it? My path to leftism started when I was about 7, when people started telling me that I couldn't play with certain toys because I was a girl, and I was like, what? I was an outspoken child. I was also vegetarian. I have always been vegetarian. I've never eaten meat. I always thought it was really weird, even as a kid. Like, why are we eating meat? It's a bit weird, isn't that a dead thing? I don't want to eat that. And so looking into the meat industry then led me to being very critical of capitalism, very young. And all of that just leads into leftism, really, doesn't it? I've always been a leftist, and being trans is just something that happened along the way, and I think it has pushed me even further left, but I was already going in that direction. Thoughts on anarchism? Anarchism is questioning hierarchy, and I have always been very vocal about hierarchy. So the next person just wrote cultural appropriation with a question mark. If you're asking me if it's a thing, then yeah. Thoughts on Brexit? It's such a mess. Oh my god, and Boris Johnson is such a piece of shit. Furry rights? Yes, furry rights. Thoughts on memes being used as propaganda? I think it's probably the future of propaganda, if not already the present. Memes are definitely political. Always try and read into the memes that you're laughing at. Why are you laughing at them? Who is being laughed at? What kind of worldview is this trying to tell you is acceptable? Do you have any training in music? I don't have any formal training in music, no. I've trained a lot by myself. I don't have a lot of formal training in anything, really. I am all for self-teaching. I absolutely love learning stuff by myself online, and I think that the access to information now with the internet is just incredible. I have learnt so much on the internet. I've learnt video editing, I've learnt musical composition, I've learnt how to mix music, I've learnt how to sing, how to draw, how to paint. There is so much stuff that you can learn online if you're motivated and you're willing. I will make a video about self-teaching and my methods on how I learn things, because I think that is probably the most important part. 90% of what I've learned is definitely through talking to people who make music and just researching stuff online. You can learn almost anything online. It's incredible. What software and hardware do you use to make your music? I use Ableton to make music because I think it's got a good workflow. I have a cheap sound card that I bought online. I'll put the link in the description. I also have this condenser microphone. I do recommend a condenser microphone for making music. I used to have guitars, but I had to sell them because I have problems with my hands. I mostly use synthesizers. This guy. I use this guy a lot. This guy is my favorite guy. I love this guy. I was kind of worried that I wouldn't use it a lot, because part of the reason I bought it was because it looks really cool. Turns out it's really good, and I am looking into buying another bigger analog synthesizer in the future because I really love synthesizers and they are very accessible to people with physical problems. I can't play a lot of traditional instruments because of my health problems. Headphones are also important. I don't have any speakers because speakers are expensive. I use these ones. Really old now. I've had them for about 6 years. I need to replace these because that's bad. That's really bad. They are Audio Technica. I think they're the M50. This thing wasn't there to start with. They're really old. They've lasted a really long time, so I definitely do recommend. You want flat frequencies so that you can really hear what you're doing. When do you decide to stop perfecting a project? Projects are just never finished, are they? I mean, I could keep working on a song or some other thing for years and still it would not be finished. I think the time when I stop perfecting a project is when I want to move on to something else. So I just decide I have to make this as good as possible with the least amount of time. So I give myself a day and then I export it and I upload it or I put it in my folder. Might come back to it in a year or two if I haven't released it yet. It is really hard to decide when something's finished. Don't wait for perfection. It will never come. And I'm saying this as a perfectionist. It's something that I've had to accept. Perfection doesn't exist and I am constantly chasing it, like a dog chasing a car. My dog would relate to that. What is art to you? Something that makes you feel something, I guess. I do want to make a video about the philosophy of art because I find it fascinating. What is art is such a huge question that honestly can't even be answered, but I could talk about it for a long time. So I'm going to work on a video about that. Is there going to be an album? I hope so. I probably have enough tracks to make 3 albums, maybe more. Yeah, probably definitely more. I'm really bad at knowing what tracks are good or not because I just don't have the perspective to know because I've worked on them for so long. Some kind of concept, audio-visual album, yeah. Any other artistic interests other than music, such as film, art, design, writing, etc.? Yes, all of these things, all of them, everything, any creative thing, I'm into it. I love writing, I love graphic design, I did a lot of graphic design, I do a lot of painting, film, definitely. I want to get into doing more video montage and more complicated video montage, but I'm waiting on a new PC because my current laptop is 8 years old and it's starting to worry me. But I've ordered my PC. I'm finally in a position where I can order a PC and know that I'll be able to eat next month. So that is awesome. Did you ever play an instrument as a child? If so, what was it? Also, acoustic or electric? Which one suits your working style better? I didn't play an instrument as a child. I would have loved to, but I didn't really have the opportunity. I briefly did 2 months of violin in school as a kid because it was an option, but then my family moved to France and so that was cut short. So I just did a lot of singing by myself in the bathroom and I recorded myself singing and I worked on that for a long time. Acoustic or electric? Well, I was really into playing acoustic guitar for a few years. I self-taught guitar. I absolutely loved playing guitar, but unfortunately I have chronic health problems and so I can't play any kind of traditional instrument that involves my hands too much. Electronic especially is definitely what I'm going towards now because it's a lot more accessible. I work a lot with loops. I love loops. I loop everything. Looping is just, yes. How far do you expect to get doing music? When I was younger, I wanted to perform, I wanted to be a singer in a band or have my own project. I'm not sure if that will happen because, I mean, yeah, I would love to make some music videos. I'm letting go of the big dreams. If I can put my music on YouTube and a few people like it, then that's great. What inspires your music? Emotions. Emotions. What's your music production process like? And what advice would you give aspiring artists? Start making, don't wait, just start now. Download music software and get on it. Start learning. There are so many tutorials online. There are so many resources. Start taking notes, get a little folder, watch videos, take notes, try it, repeat. At start, it's going to be very overwhelming, but keep doing it. and have fun with it. It is so fun to make music. It really is. Try and experiment, record stuff in your day-to-day life, and then apply effects to it, loop it, and see what comes out of it. It's just experimentation and mistakes. Making mistakes isn't a bad thing. Making mistakes can teach you a lot. Which language do you prefer to speak, French or English? Is it the same for singing? I don't know if I've a preference. I feel like my personality and my humour comes through more when I speak English. I also sing a lot more in English because I think in English. So when I'm in front of a microphone, my emotions come up in English. I do want to do a bit more French stuff, but I think that music for me is a way to express myself in English that I just don't have in my day-to-day life. I speak French all day, so when I come home at night, singing in English is really cool for me. Will you pursue your musical efforts? Absolutely. A special thank you to Jessica, LPQ Silver, Nancy T, Reasonably Agitated Honeybee, and that one guy, Brad.